for the summer break.
Good morning and welcome to Competitive Advantage, your show about competitive advantage. How's that for an explanation? We have new rules. Well, we have rules updates. Some of them are ridiculously stupid that you'd have to ever say that and that people were playing it the other way. I always enjoy some of those where it's like, oh, I could have been cheating and playing it the other way. But the also most important thing for my morning is screw you, Corn Demonkin. No one likes you. Go away. The Corn Demonkin detachment, in my opinion, got destroyed. I was hoping it wouldn't. I didn't prep it purposefully for Tacoma because I psychically, in the warp, thought that this is what was going to happen. So if you guys are wondering why Noah hasn't looked at us or made any comments yet, it's because Noah is reading the update. He just woke up. And that's a lot. I'm just gonna call you out, Noah. I'm just gonna be like, you're called
The
out.
ADHD with me is so strong this morning. It's going to be a wild ride. It's going to
Okay.
be wild.
Great.
I have one of these. I'll be okay.
Yeah. I had one of those ADHD days yesterday. I never have time blindness, but I had time blindness so bad yesterday. Like video game. Huh, it's 9 o'clock. Haven't fed anybody dinner. That's bad. So, anywho, we have new stuff to talk about. Yay, Corn Demon can screw you. But yay. Before we do that, we have to do our normal check-in. Noah, how you doing?
I am doing pretty fucking good this week.
Okay. How's new job? Do you love new job?
New job is great. New
Wonderful.
job is very challenging. Truck is currently broken, but will be fixed. Probably won't be fixed before Tacoma, so I have to now arrange for a ride down to Tacoma. Hey, what's going on?
I can get you to Tacoma.
Okay, cool. And then because life was really crazy up until I didn't even know if I was going to Tacoma, I'm also scrambling this week to set up lodging for Tacoma for probably more than just myself. So that'll be taking place probably this afternoon.
That is also relevant to my interests.
And so other than that, I got my painting commission finally done, the one with the knights.
Oh, nice.
The recipient was very happy with the result. So I'm very cool with that. It's very good. I finally got some of my like side consulting work I was doing wrapped up. So like my evenings lately my days have been work all day and then work on extra work all evening, every evening for like the last 2 weeks. And that stopped on Monday or Sunday. And I am in a good mood now. I can actually think about Warhammer. It's sad. It's not sad, but it's not like necessarily happiness, but my wife is going to Vegas for a thing. I will always miss my wife when she leaves. My kids, though, are also going away for the weekend for like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And there are 2 RTTs this weekend.
There's like 4. There's like 4.
I'm going to at least one of them.
Okay. Well, you should go with me.
Okay.
Because there's a whole bunch of people you know and like that are going to the one in Kent.
That's the one I'm already signed up for. My name is on the list.
Great. Well, you can come with me since your truck is broken. Oh,
that
would have to get... Okay. I was like, you'd have to get to me. I forgot that part of the process. Things are still weird for Colin. I'm very excited about doing the content and everything. Unfortunately, at this exact moment, the transition of my family into divorced life with the kids and everything and selling the house, that's just very distracting and is the priority. I want to make sure that this ends in a way. Stephanie and I are fine getting divorced. I mean, it's going to be hard, but we're fine. We understand why it's happening. I think we're even beginning to understand how we got to this place. So like lots of understanding there, but we still want to structure it correctly for the kids, and make sure that they're supported and happy. When I came in, I made the kids a promise that I wasn't going to go anywhere, even if things didn't work out with their mom. So I have to live up to that promise. And there's a lot of stuff, moving parts to do that. So still working on the network in the background. The minute they all move out, which is about to happen in the next week or two, I will then have all the time I want for the plan that I've made, which is pretty exciting. I've made the plan. I know what I'm going to work on. I know when I'm going to work on it. I have stuff I've filmed that isn't edited yet that I'm trying to push through, but there's just so much. Uh, I was just gonna. It makes it sound fancier than it is. There's so much cognitive load on my brain.
It'll load. Sorry.
Someone took a dump on my brain. That's not right. Anywho, one thing I have done is made the incredibly important decision that I hate the name Best in Tabletop, and it's changing before basically what's going to happen is everything I've tested out and I've done is going to be solidified and it's going to roll. And when I do that, I'm going to start it with the network being renamed. I did not know when I made all my logos that people hate AI slop. I didn't understand that. I didn't know why. I know that now. I will own that I am using Adobe Firefly, which is self-taught and does not have all the problems. Nobody cares about that. I'm getting negative feedback about that. So what we're going to do is we're going to rename the network, which I think is important anyways. The name doesn't make sense with what I'm trying to do. And I'm going to have all the logos redone. And I'm going to do all that together as kind of it's time to get rolling. Colin's got all the free time he was promised. So yeah, that's what's going on with me. Here's how the network rename is going to go, and it's probably going to start next week. I'm going to announce that it's happening. You're going to be able to send names in, I think, to a Google form. I'm not entirely sure where you're going to do it yet. And then 2 weeks after that, I will announce the name, and then a week later than that, will be rebranded on the name that whoever it is chose. If I choose your name, you get $100 to an amazing game store owned by Noah Bedone, Aegis Games. So, because they're awesome. And really our only sponsor, so I should talk about them more often. Anywho, that's what's going on with me and with the network and with everything. Yeah, I am going to do a neat thing for Tacoma. I'll say one more thing about that, Noah, and then I'll let you talk. For Tacoma, I think what I'm going to do is do an episode of this show, right before it, that is, this is my elder list. This is what I went through to get here. This is what I think is going to happen. This is my expectations for my strengths and weaknesses. And then I want to take that and I want to combine it with content I filmed a day or two after the show, after the tournament, where I'm going to say, this is what I was right about. This is what I was wrong about. This is where the wheels came off. This is what I learned. And I think that doing that before and after, since I'm someone who, and I'm going to be open with my language here, Noah. I'm someone who unhealthily obsesses about 40K army lists. Like, it's not okay how much I worry. So I want to make sure that I want to take you guys on that path. This is where Colin got himself to. When I want to play with a thing, I'm going to convince myself I should play with that thing, even if it's not good. So that'll be part of it. Go ahead, Noah.
That kind of obsessive. I have also an unhealthy obsession with my list, but it's not with it's not with like I build the list pretty easily usually. Like I tweak a little bit. It's that once I have it built, before I submit it, I go over it over and over and over again, and then bug a bunch of people to look at it, even though it was created in the army builder, and make sure all my war gear is right. And I do that obsessively, even after I submit the list, up until the list lock, because one time I didn't, and I won a tournament, and then had all of my shit taken away.
Yep.
Because my list was messed up.
Yep. I haven't had a list messed up, but I have forgotten something on my list.
Oh no! Like a piece of war gear.
There was a tournament where I copy pasted the wrong list, and I was 110 points short. And it's really, really great that the TO was my friend and reached out and said, "Are you really going to just flex on everybody and play 5% down? Like, is that what's happening?" And I did. I didn't feel like changing my list, and I went 4-1, and it was fine.
Awesome.
I mean, it was Eldar. What you gonna do? No one knew there was 110 points missing. Okay, so that's what's going on with us. RTT this weekend. Tacoma 2 weeks after that, I think.
Nope. Tacoma the following weekend.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, you're literally 1 week from Tacoma.
Okay. I did decide to, so like a lot of my stuff is packed because we did the thing where we have to stage the house. So
Yeah.
like, and you know, like staging the house when you're selling it means no one should, it can't look like anyone lives there. So a lot of our stuff is packed, and I don't know where all my hobby stuff is. So I've decided, I've made the incredibly intelligent and mature decision to play the list I want to play at Tacoma and simply borrow hammer the models I don't have. So I will have some other Eldar joining and hanging out with my Eldar. Um, did I tell you the super sad Tacoma news for Chuck?
No.
This is heartbreaking. So Chuck is making a Votann army for Tacoma from Chaos Dwarfs. And in order to make the Chaos Dwarfs tall enough to be Votann, because they aren't already, Chuck had hats 3D printed and put hats on everybody.
Mhm.
And it's fantastic. He sent the pictures into GW, and they responded back and said, "These models are really gorgeous. They're really awesome. You can't play with them because they have 3D prints. If you hand molded and hobbied every one of these hats, it's fine." And Chuck said, "Well, that's really blows. Luckily, I have a whole nother painted Votann army I can take instead." That part's funny. He had the whole other Votann army sitting there, and he's like, "I guess I take this one." But it's really sad that he had this cool, super cool project that he doesn't get to bring. But I understand GW's concern about 3D printing. So like, I get where they're coming from, but it's a pretty big bummer. I didn't look at the rules, but Chuck said that this interaction doesn't really match with their rules that they've written. So that's not great. But I guess I should have looked at that if I was going to call them out on it. So that's not super fair. I usually give GW the benefit of the doubt, even when they don't deserve it. But in this case, I'm just like, no, how dare they not let Chuck have his hats? So
You're very protective of Chuck, though, so I understand.
He's the Mad Hatter. He
Oh
could have
my
been the
god,
Mad Hatter.
he's the upset head cover.
Yeah. So he does have. What's funny about that is he sent me a picture a week ago that said my Votann army's ready for the tournament because he was doing all this hobby to get ready, and then suddenly GW's like, "No, you have to play with the army you already own," and he's like, "Okay, hobby done."
And good.
Yeah. So Tacoma is very soon, which is fascinating. Incredibly helpful information.
Make sure I'm not stupid, but I'm pretty sure.
Okay. It's just, whatever. Sure. Yeah. Okay. I'm very surprised. Okay.
It is on the day of July 17th through the 20th.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's definitely next weekend.
Okay. Well, that's exciting. Whew. I don't
Now,
even know.
what is cool about Tacoma, from what I understand, I think it's the GW events are usually like this, is that basically there's no list lock basically until the morning of the event.
Mm-hmm.
So you can all of your practice up to the last second can count.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into the news.
Okay.
Let's replace good, bad, and ugly with we're going to tell you what happened this morning. I guess there's some bad and ugly from what happened this morning that we can maybe talk about. But let's get rolling with what has changed. And I'm going to be honest, I read all the docs and I tried to understand what's different. And I'm going to use Goonhammer's article as a reference as I go through to make sure I don't miss anything. I'm calling that out because I feel like they did all the work here and not me. So if you'd like to see their summary, it's fantastic. Go to Goonhammer. It's the top article. How about this, Noah? If you'd like to follow along at home, students, we're going to start at the top of the Goonhammer article. Go ahead, Noah.
While you were introing, I read the whole thing too, and I'm very fast at simulating data, so I am also prepared to discuss intelligently on what happened.
Okay. So first of all, they changed charge eligibility to check every time. So if something, this is funny because we really talked about this with the Khorne Daemonkin, and it didn't end up mattering because you can't drop in and charge because you can't, it doesn't work that way. This was another problem with our cheating. They've solved that Khorne Daemonkin cheating we wanted to do in like 5 ways, and this is one of them. I don't know what else this affects. Things moving.
So this change means that previously, if you dropped in the Khorne Daemonkin thing, you couldn't technically charge because they weren't the beginning of the thing. That has changed now. Units now become eligible throughout the charge phase, which is a big deal because there was some. I don't think anyone was actually understood. I even the Goonhammer person said they didn't know it worked this way. They like threw their hands and said, so like I don't think anyone understood this, but like if you did a thing where like you had a unit that was, let's say, outside of 12 of a unit, you had another unit that was eligible for a charge and had like a reactive move when it got charged, and it moved inside of 12 eligibility of another unit that was previously out, the unit could not charge them anymore.
Yeah, no one knew that.
No one could charge it. Yeah, no one knew that because I saw that happen all the time.
Yeah, yes. Okay,
So this
so
is cool.
it works that way now.
A rule that now doesn't exist. What happened is everyone read Goonhammer, realized that was a thing, realized they've been playing it wrong for years, and now it doesn't matter. That's what just happened.
Yeah, and then they said, hey, if somebody declares to charge you and they're not the closest thing, it turns out they're not the closest thing for shooting them. Like for your shooting the closest target rule, it turns out just because someone's charging you doesn't make them the closest thing. That's common sense because you are overwatching at the start of their movement. I think people don't get this. You're always overwatching at the start or the end of someone's movement. You don't get to see them in the middle at all. So I think Warhammer Old World does this the opposite way, where they presume that at the end, at some point in the Overwatch, you're an inch away, which is interesting. But that's not the way 40K has ever done it.
So that's not what
I don't. Okay, we're not going to say ever done it. That's not the way it is currently. There,
so
go ahead. No.
That's not what this wording is addressing. This wording is addressing that because it says a lot of things say closest eligible.
Yeah.
You actually Overwatch, the only unit that is eligible as a target is the unit you're overwatching.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't say that.
Which meant it like it made all these abilities that have a really strict restriction suddenly can apply to something that is 24 inches away between 4 other units because they're the only unit you're overwatching.
Oh yeah, that's
you like close. You get +1 wound against a closest enemy unit that's 18 inches away behind 3 units, but it's the only one that's eligible. So I get my +1 wound.
Fair enough.
That doesn't work. You're a bunch of cheaters.
I really like the next section. The Goonhammer guy says, embarking within vehicles with bases. This is probably a mistake. So it says that embarking into a vehicle says you no longer have to be wholly with, or you don't know, you just have to be within 3 rather than wholly within 3. 6, 3, whatever it is. 3, yeah. That's what it says. So like you can string over one dude and be like, hey, we're here, and everybody gets sucked inside. That's what it says, right?
Yeah, it's not very clear. There aren't a lot of transports with bases though. So I think it's okay because it specifically applies to embarking on vehicles with bases. So I'm trying to think of which vehicles with bases have a transport capacity.
I would love somebody to tell me how you deploy people out of a Wave Serpent without cheating. That would be a really great thing to understand.
Oh, I guess Wave Serpents have a base. I don't ever think about them having a base because their base is so irrelevant to the game.
They have a flight stand. They have a flight stand. I don't think they have a base.
I know which ones have bases. This basically almost explicitly only applies to the Space Marine hovering transports, the Primaris transports, the Repulsor and the Impulsor. This basically only applies to those.
Weird. Okay. So I don't know enough about Tau currently to explain what's changed, but I like the idea that their new rules have already been adjusted. I think that's fun.
Yeah, the big thing was that the real like most important thing that happened was you had to pick which unit was spotting and what unit and what enemy unit it was spotting at the beginning of the phase. Now you pick which unit of yours is doing the spotting, and then you can pick which enemy unit it is targeting anytime during the phase. What that means is you can change your game plan slightly based on how things go.
Yep.
Rather than be locked in, accidentally not roll high enough on your shooting and completely screw over your plan.
So it's a buff. That's fun.
Yeah, it's like it really actually just makes it. It's a buff to how long your Tau player's turn takes. Move a little faster. That's
funny. Okay, that's all 3 of the changes?
The other changes are more just clarifications. So, like for instance, you can't double spot an enemy unit, which is I think how everyone was playing it already anyway. Um, and then that it's checked by model now and not by unit. So that's another thing that I don't think really was applying. Is basically if a model unit doesn't have for the greater good, it doesn't get the benefit.
Uh-huh.
I don't play Tau very much lately, so I do not know which multi units don't have for the greater good.
Okay.
But it's checked on the per model basis now, which is I don't think it's actually going to impact much play at all.
Okay. Moving on.
Donald may have different opinions.
They do clarify that to get Cull the Horde, you have to kill the entire unit, including the attachments. That makes sense.
In one go. If the bodyguard unit wouldn't meet the criteria normally, and you like the example they give is the cultists, and you kill say just the cultists, and you just barely miss the dark commune that's attached, then it doesn't check. The unit dies, and you no longer have a cull target that is eligible at all.
Yeah.
So, so you have to kill it in like either one activation or leave one cultist left over so you can finish it off.
Well, that's dumb. Okay, moving on.
The Cronus Coronis has a base, apparently. I've never seen that thing on competitive in playing competitively.
And this is the morning where I learned that my Howling Banshees have been on the wrong base sizes. Sorry, not Banshees, Swooping Hawks have been on the wrong base sizes. They corrected them to be on 32s. I don't think I knew they were on 32s. Moving right along. There's an Eldari change. It changes a cheating thing with Baharoth and Swooping Hawks that I don't think actually ever worked. So fine. There was a cheating thing getting out of transports and then leaving, which is why you never actually get to interact with the Swooping Hawks, which would matter if they were a good unit. Anywho, they do clarify that if you have a unit with shrine tokens on it and there's an autarch or an attachment, that doesn't keep the shrine tokens when the unit dies. Fine. I have a fact question that's never been answered that I'm just playing the worst way for me. That is, excuse me, I'm about to choke to death. Okay. Noah, I've got a 5-man Banshee unit with an autarch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You shoot the 5 Banshees off.
Mm-hmm.
Can I battle focus reaction move on the autarch?
I would think so.
Nope, I don't think you can. He's not the unit he's not the unit that got shot anymore.
GW, how they have done persisting effects.
Okay.
So for instance, if you Oath of Moment that unit and you kill the Banshees, the Oath of Moment is still on the autarch.
Okay, because I was thinking, oh well, this isn't the unit that got shot anymore. This is a dude. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
I mean that's like how at least a good example is how it's been ruled at every event I've gone to where it's become relevant. Is my when I attach orcs to boys.
Mm-hmm.
Is
this another blood surge then?
Yeah, this is a blood surge. So you shoot me, I spend a CP for my blood surge. You kill the whole boys unit. I have a pain boy and a boss left. I apparently get the blood surge on each of these individually.
Yeah,
and they go
so. Who knew? And then they specify that the Incarn has to heal. Hey, guess what, guys? In English, when the word is not may or can, it's mandatory. Okay, that really frustrates me because in Ynnari that was cheating and it was providing value to you by opting not to heal, which you can't do. Okay, those are the Eldar changes. I personally don't think that the guard changes are doing anything but clarifying stupidity.
You can't use a detachment on something, a stratagem on something that's battle shocked. Sweet.
Yeah, you can't use the Voxcaster rule twice to try to get to the CP twice. Like, those are stupid things. Errata changing.
Horrors have been absolutely nerfed from an A+ save to a 7+ save.
Yeah, weird. Chaos Knights. Does this mean anything?
Again, it's one of those things that I just scratched my back with a hammer for anyone who just saw that.
Okay.
Chaos Knights, that the strat basically was poorly worded when it got when the new version of it, which Imperious Advance is just Knights of Shade, and when Knights of, which is the one that lets you go through walls and models, when that strat was reworded into Imperious Advance, they accidentally made it sound like when you use it, you can't end in range of a in engagement range of an enemy unit. So basically, they the wording bled in such a way so like when you're moving, so you're ignoring models. If you were moving in the move phase, you can move over and through models and terrain, but cannot end with an engagement of an enemy model. That wording bled into the charge component, which meant you could use it to charge, but if you use it to charge, you couldn't complete a charge technically. No one was playing it that way. It
Okay.
now works as intended, as written.
Similarly, there are some Chaos Space Marine changes that are why was anyone letting anybody do this? So we'll just pass those. For Dark Angels, I like the top thing. Leonine aggression. No, you cannot use this to charge out of combat. I didn't even look up what the rule was. I just think no, you cannot use this to charge out of combat is the best update ever on a rule. You guys are dumb. This doesn't work that way.
Can you imagine that? Well, okay. So there is exactly one way to charge out of combat in the entire edition.
Game? Okay.
Yeah, it is definitely intentional. There is a actually, I guess we're not Emperor Children. I can't. I didn't see. Don't think I saw this, but there is a stratagem in the Chaos Demons and Emperor's Children strat that specifically says that a children unit in engagement range with an enemy unit during the fight phase, if a certain condition is met, can charge out of that combat into another combat and fight if they haven't fought. I think people are trying to like make that Leonine aggression detachment also be that ability, and it's just not the same thing.
Yeah. For Carnival of Excess, it's actually a tiny buff of clarification that it turns out if you have sustained on 5s, that still means you have sustained, which I think is another hilarious. Unless I'm misreading, that's what the change is. I don't care about and then there's a bunch of stuff that okay, so what's this Imperial Knights buff, Noah? Or Imperial Agents buff. You're the Imperial Agents expert on the show.
Okay, so this is for the combat landers and clandestine operation. So I'm saying this is for anyone who hasn't played Agents. This is like a little complicated. So what the actual thing says in Goonhammer says, although you choose the units for these effects at the start of the declare battle formation phase, which is before leaders get attached, the 7Q says that leaders who join these units will benefit too. All that's saying is that before there was there's like one of the detachments has a modal buffs you get to choose at the beginning of the game, like before you attach leaders. People were trying to say that because that happened before you attach leaders, the leaders who attach those units will not receive those buffs. They have clarified that is not true, and that the leaders who attach after you've selected the abilities for the individual units will also still get those buffs. I feel like I don't think anyone would have played it differently anyway, but apparently there was somebody who was saying there's a reason this is being FAQ'd. So, and then the second one is for the clandestine operations component, which is this means no longer use 2 slots on this if you want to use them on a unit and the leader, and for the clandestine operations if you want to go all in infiltrating 3 big Death Watch kill team units. What this basically means is the detachment ability for that Imperial Agents detachment is actually usable the way it was intended and doesn't require you to double up on to, like, let's say, pick one of your units. So how it had happened before is if you had a leader and a unit that you wanted to infiltrate, you had to give the leader infiltrate and the unit infiltrate, and then attach the leader to the unit, which takes up 2 of your slots for the number of units you can buff. Now it doesn't do it that way. That you can actually have 3 separate units with leaders attached infiltrate.
I'm gonna be honest that I stopped listening to Noah about 15 seconds into that. That Imperial agents errata. Let's move on. Thanks,
Yeah,
Noah. I'm sure that 7% of our audience was captivated.
yeah. I can narrow this down to, you know how a bunch of detachments in the game have ability.
No, we don't need to talk more about it. I think you're mistaken. Okay. All joking aside, that sounds like a great buff to the way that Imperial agents function. There is a funny thing that crypto thralls can fight on death, and then if they're brought back from a stratagem, they can fight it on death again, and I think that's great.
Crypto Fells, okay. Crypto Fells are the accidentally most broken thing in the history of PK on like an individual model basis. Obviously, Ynnari is the most broken thing that's ever existed because it has the highest recurrence of breaking the game. But if you talk the individual model, CryptoThal gets the number of times someone has gone to do something in this game against Necrons and expected it to work in a sane way that would allow them to win an interaction. And that interaction was totally fucked 3 ways from Sunday because a Crypto Thrall made a 4+ save is probably high enough that there are people actively in therapy today because of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, Crypto Thralls, if Steve Ross is listening, Crypto Thralls are like, he loves him. Right? So I think it's so funny that these little stupid models, they're like an add-on, keep getting rules added and removed. I feel like more errata space has been spent on how does a Crypto Thrall work than is necessary over the course of this game.
Yeah. No, does this orc change mean anything? It seems to me it's just telling people not to be idiots.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, moving on. There are Space Wolf changes, but I haven't read that codex yet, so it looks like it's mostly fixing problems.
Oh, it was that if you had an Iron Priest buff something, their new Iron Priest's new special ability was when it buffs a vehicle, the vehicle gets the normal buffs, but also gets rapid fire 1 on all of its guns, which meant within half range it would get an extra shot. This was incredibly meaningful on like repulsor executioners that have several like 1-shot heavy damage guns. This is also really, really funny on lancers and other things that have guns that like, can like 1-shot a vehicle almost by themselves. Now it only gives rapid fire 1 to a single gun on that tank.
Yeah, and I agree with Robert Goonhammer's take that this is this is a rule that they messed up and wrote badly, and now they fixed it wrong, and it's bad. Like it's worse than a Tech Marine, he says in the Goonhammer article. So bad.
We have some chats who probably should give some credence to. Jason says, "Fuck that asshole Quinn who brings us up." Sorry, people named Quinn. It was the first name to fit. Eric says, "Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going, Eric?" And then KR Quintero also pointed out that the other change in Space Wolves was you cannot double vex something, which, again, a lot of this FAQ is like, I feel like a lot of this FAQ is like, those random people you play with in practice games who are like, no, this weird sideways interaction that requires the moon to align correctly allows me to do this thing that very obviously not intended. This FAQ is basically just saying, no, guys, that's not how this works. This is just like the reasonability check. And I think the reason they're doing this, so I'm going to have some meta commentary, is because they did a very similar small change in the by event FAQ for Edmonton, like about a week out from Edmonton. I think that this is basically the like quality of life rules update before Tacoma Open to minimize the amount of like weird things that need field in the by event FAQ and erratas, and judge calls going up to Tacoma. So I
Oh, yeah,
think
that makes sense.
this is like, hey, we're gonna get a bunch of stupid questions about these stupid things, and we don't want to have to spend time on clocks fixing this. So we're just going to do this now, which I think is really smart of them.
So yeah, I think that's well put, Noah. So the next section is T-Sense, and I wanna make a comment and then have Noah walk us through the T-Sense changes. Uh, I am very unhappy with the T-Sense codex. It's actually quite cool, but the issues that it provides are awful and toxic. And to me, it's like the worst good matchup, bad matchup list in the game. If you have a game into them, you could give them a terrible experience, but in general, they're probably going to give you a terrible experience. So I was hoping that they would get nerfed, but there's no data to tell people that they should be nerfed because so many other things are good. That's kind of my takeaway on T-Sense. Noah's nodding. Like T-Sense are just being completely ignored and they're wildly not okay. So,
Yeah,
so I'm curious. I'm curious if these changes bring them in at all. And I
absolutely.
don't think they do. Yeah, no, I don't think so either.
Yeah. These changes, these changes do a couple things that will. These changes will modify list composition. They will not, however, modify the damage output of a squad of Rubric Marines or any other thing pointing at you and saying you're going to die now. So I'm sorry if anyone had their hopes up. Okay, so the first change on here is basically just that the Mutalith Vortex Beast and a couple of the changes in Mutalith Vortex Beast specific. So Mutalith Vortex Beasts do not get the Warp Meld Pact bonuses anymore. They don't get counted as a mutant. That kind of sucks. Again, I think I agree. I don't know why they didn't just make them 20 points more and let them have the benefit. So whatever. There's a Mortal Wounds component in the Warp Meld Pact that previously you could use the Mortal Wounds caused to your Zangors to pull them out of harm's way. Now you can't. It happens at the end of the phase. It's fine. It's not. It works more like how all the other kind of mortal wound abilities like that work. So that's fine. The buff, the casting buff from Mutalith Vortex Beasts, which was like you does not no longer stack with any other casting buff now. So it doesn't make like Magnus's casting basically 100% assured anymore. That kind of sucks because now there's almost no reason to take Mutalith Vortex Beasts other than just being a big chonker. So you'll probably just see like one or whatever, but I think they're going to lose some amount of their utility because the reliability on the casting was really nice off them. I don't think it changes whether or not your opponents ever get the ability off. It just changes whether or not your opponent more reliably gets the big cast. And I don't actually think that changes the damage output that much. And then the other one is very
hold on, no, let me comment on that.
Yeah.
I think aren't Vortex Beasts still really undercosted for their durability?
Yes and no. They're dependent on a 5-up invulnerable save and a high toughness. They're really undercosted and survivable to like a certain section of the game.
Okay.
And then there are other sections of the game that just absolutely do not care, and you just die. If a knight if knights are shooting Vortex Beasts, they don't care. If obviously Votann shoot Vortex Beasts, don't care. I think most Eldar don't care because when they're shooting the big lances, basically anything that's like multi-damage strength 12 does not give a shit because it's a 5-up into a 5-up. Mm-hmm. Right, so they're still going to take significant damage. It is like a reduction, but it's like a small increase in wounds. They're basically, instead of being 13 wounds or whatever, they end up basically at 16 wounds. But into things that are like already wounding them on 5s, it is incredibly abysmal to like push through them, even with rerolls, because most of that also you're wounding on like you're usually like 2 damage attacks. You're getting through a 5-up barely, and then you lose a wound to a 5-up, feeling pain, and suddenly this thing takes 1,000,000 years to kill. I do think they're still good. They're just not quite as good. In Warp Meld, they were really good because they double what they could buff your attack, your cast, and they got the benefits of the detachment, so they were like really a strong anchor point. I think they're just not as much.
Okay.
Not mine.
All right, next T-Suns change.
This is really simple. It just clarifies that the leader attached to the infiltrate ability in the Rubricate. So there's a Rubricate ability that lets you enhancement lets you pick a unit, and that unit gets infiltrate. Previously, because it happened at a different stage, you would not get that on your leaders. So if you put a leader unit in the Terminator unit that you were infiltrating, you technically couldn't infiltrate because the leader didn't have it. I don't think anyone was playing it that way. They have now clarified that it does work, so you can infiltrate normally, which is the way it was intended to work in the first place. And that's, basically exactly the same change that happened to the agents. And then there's a couple small adjustments to things like the Rhinos finally got Firing Deck 2 actually printed on their datasheet. So yeah. Because Rhino accidentally didn't have Firing Deck in Thousand Suns. So like every single Rhino in the game had Firing Deck 2 and Thousand Suns did not. And so Edmonton had to specifically for that event FAQ that they did. So
okay. Next up is Tyranids, and it's for the new detachment. And what I think is so funny about this is that this is a wildly powerful detachment that no one's paying attention to.
it's so.
I will just tell you, this is a wildly broken thing that's broken. If you are a Tyranid player, you should be trying this. It is hilarious, and these changes do not hurt it. So the first thing is that the portals, the tokens that they're putting out, are 40mm tokens. I don't think it specified that before. It's very helpful for that because you're not measuring from the center of it, you're measuring from the token. So the bigger they make it, the more the ability works even. But, glad that they specified that because it sure does matter. You can't pull out of engagement range, and then there was one more, but I scrolled too far. Oh, interesting. Oh, okay. So you can't arrive from a tunnel and do mortal wounds with the Moloch. Sorry, Moloch, you have to not be played with. It's very important that the Moloch doesn't get played with. This is a very important thing for GW. Sometimes they get really close to it getting played with, and then they nerf it before we do. This is one of those cases. All right.
I mean, people are probably still taking the Moloch for the extra tunneling, right?
I mean, you don't need to.
Okay.
Like, Ravener's real good.
Yeah, Raveners are real good. So there's like that Tzeentch detachment has an ability that lets them uppy downy out of combat. And I think that some of the Tyranid players were like basically trying to do that with the training ability, like the jump, and it works to get you out of combat without it counting as fallback. I don't think this doesn't ruin their game plan, but this was definitely something that was abusable, that was being used to very punishing effect. So I think like this brings them a little in line. I will say that this detachment is the only Tyranid's detachment that has successfully taken down a Knights unit or like a Knights army in the top echelon of a tournament recently at all. So previously, Tyranids really just didn't have very good technology into Knights, which meant if you were a really good Tyranids player, you ran into a really good Knights player in the kind of the top tiers of the game, you probably lost because the stat check was just so poorly mismatched. There is technology. I don't know all of it, but there is technology in that Tyranids attachment that allows them to actually deal with Knights. And there were at least 2 different situations this last weekend where this attachment beat Knights players, which has been given. This is now the great hope for the Tyranids player. I think we're going to see a lot of people move to this now, considering some of those really good Tyranid players were smacking Knights with it. We're going to see, I think, an influx of the Tyranid players who are looking at other things, moving to this, going into things like Tacoma.
Yeah, and I think they're going to find that it's really, really, really hard to play, and they're going to fail. I think that that's what's going to happen. But it is an army that can uppy downy Zoes to almost anywhere. So if you want Zoes to kill a knight, and they have a lot of buffs to make them very efficient at doing so, they can be wherever that needs to be.
And
They
that's
can
the
take
technology we were talking about.
that's got to be one of them. But like, yeah, Zoe's coming in and being like, "Hey, we're gonna shoot you from right here, and that's gonna be great for us." Real gross. Okay, next up, we have World Eaters.
Yeah, you tell
Sorry,
us about it, Colin.
sorry, World Eaters. You were almost good enough. God help you. That's not Emperor help you. No, that's not right. Corn. There we go. Corn help you. Uh, Hilarious. First of all, they dealt with Summoned by Slaughter. For those that don't know what Summoned by Slaughter is, it's the Corn bloodletter thing that we have been talking about as this is going to get nerfed and kill the detachment. Hey, guess what? It got nerfed and killed the detachment. This detachment is not strong enough without this. But the first thing they did is fine. They said, hey, if you kill a transport, people get out before you get to put your bloodletters down. Fine. There was a problem where you could wrap the transport and then people couldn't get out. But guess what? That already doesn't work anymore because they also specified that when you come in, you have to be 6 inches away. A 6-inch charge is not the same thing as a 1-inch charge. A 6-inch charge is not a guarantee.
Isn't it a charge?
No, because you have to be over 6 away.
Right, but don't you get +1 a charge from your little piece of war gear and your
Fair. But we can agree that this is not as good.
No, 5 is not. 5 and 6 are both not as good as 1. Correct.
Yes. I think that this is the change that kills it. I think that it's a fun detachment, but I think that it is hard to play. It's hard to play correctly. I don't think it has a lot of forgiveness built into it. And I think that the only thing that army had going for it was doing ridiculous things with bloodletters, and I think this hurts that a lot. A lot of the time, I would use it as kind of a rapid ingress at the end of someone's fight phase. The bloodletters still work great for that. But the primary way that bloodletters get used in that army, at least when I play with it, is that the Forge Fiends shoot and pick a thing up, and then 9-inch further from that, bloodletters come in, and now they're a problem for your army to deal with. With the 6-inch disclaimer, then people can screen that. So then it doesn't happen. And now it's like Blood Search, and you're going to be reminding your opponent of a 6-inch deep strike the whole game, and you're never going to get to do it anywhere interesting.
So I would devil advocate that a little bit. Is
Sure.
that because it's like anytime anytime something dies, you can like identify a knot of like screening areas, kill multiple things, and then get to the point where you have a good positioning to drop a 6.
Yeah.
And then roll a 5-inch charge. The other thing is because of the charge change. Now the thing that does work is killing something on them with mortal wound, with impact mortal wounds, and then bringing the bloodletters in, and then charging, after you come in through that.
I still don't think you can do that.
Did they change that in the charge?
No, but there were multiple reasons they couldn't do it before, and the only one of them got changed. I thought that there was another thing where you can't come in and move in the same phase.
You can't be repositioned, but that's different. But yeah, so we'll have to look into that for sure. I don't think that like it makes it unplayable, but I think I agree with you. It's definitely not as nutty.
Well, I don't think it's unplayable, but I think that in a world where you're trying to compete with the meta, World Eaters just don't have it. Sorry, you're just not as good as the other Chaos books that came out. I've played a bunch against Death Guard. Tell me that the World Eaters book is as good as anything in the Death Guard book. That said, World Eaters aren't bad. They punch very hard, they're very fast, they've got good jank. The problem I have with the Khorne Daemonkin detachment is that its detachment ability isn't good. And while some of its stratagems are good, it's relying on bloodletters to do work, and they don't. So a huge part of how people are using bloodletters is as screens and to flip objectives. All of that is massively impacted by this.
I agree. I think this actually just makes the World Eaters book a little more boring too, because the detachment that's had the most success is the Berserker detachment. That detachment didn't receive any changes. The Hellbrute got modified a little bit. The Hellbrute showed up in that detachment, but the Hellbrute clarifications were all like the way that they should have been working anyway.
Yep.
So I think you just like we just got closer to like a mono detachment book. You know, like there's less reason now to take anything else other than that detachment. There are multiple lists in that detachment that are good. There's like a vehicle heavy one. There's like a
Hmm.
more infantry heavy one. But I think we're really close to like, hey, if you're going to play World Leaders, you're probably just playing the Circuit detachment,
Yeah, I think you absolutely are. I think that that's what you're doing,
which is
and
boring and
and I
sad.
think that that army is wildly two-dimensional and not good enough. That's how I feel about
I
it.
do like rapid fire last cannons. I will say that.
Oh yeah, yeah, but if you look at who at the lists that are even doing a little bit well with world eaters, that's people aren't taking the Land Raider, which is so sad. Uh, okay. One other thing on that is the Lord on Juggernaut in the Khorne Demonkin detachment. This is hilarious. You put him with the Blood Crushers, and he loses the World Eaters trait and gains the Demon trait keyword. So he can't be the Warlord. Now, what I love about this is in the previous errata, they specified that he then has both. That he gives the unit both keywords, the World Leaders and the Demon keywords. They specified that, and it made no sense because the rules say it's removed. Now they're saying he can't be the Warlord because he lost that thing that you verified he has. So I have to do a little bit more digging into this because it seems preposterous. But it also doesn't matter. I always put Angron in charge. It seemed like that was appropriate. Okay, cool. That is all of the changes.
Can we take a little? So these changes obviously affect Edmonton, or not Edmonton. Sorry, to come open.
Yeah, the one we live next to, not the other one.
Yeah, and the meta is shaping up a very specific way. So we can take like a quick, if we can like take a quick like Noah divergence corner, and I can talk about just like literally like 3 minutes to point out some shifts in the meta that are going to be relevant to our discussion.
Yeah, okay.
Um, so last week we saw some interesting things over the weekend. We saw Lord of Dread win a GT, which they had like the Chaos Knights detachments had kind of been like going undefeated or going X1, but not quite winning stuff. When Imperial Knights were doing better, we're now seeing they're actually become like winning, like we're busting out of that bubble, and CK are now also winning events. So that's the thing. We saw Chaos Marines come out with some of the Renegade Raiders attachments, the ones that get assault on everything, and start bringing Lord Discordance, which are like anti-vehicle tech. So that's around now. That's super cool. Sisters won an event, which is like kind of big because Sisters have been languishing a little bit. I still don't think they're amazing, but they're doing a little bit better. And then obviously, like the Tyranid stuff is still around, and the some of the things we're seeing really emerge are Ultramarines still here, still Stormlance is still whooping a butt,
Yeah.
right? So that still exists. The Storm Raven is still running around. T-Suns are an unmitigated menace and are currently the most reliable night killer. They're the army that is winning against the night matchup most reliably.
Yeah, because they kill literally anything in shooting. They don't care.
Right.
And so what if you couldn't hide from their shooting?
And then we're seeing a little bit of the fan buff, but we are not seeing them win anything. We're seeing them like gatekeep some knights out, which is okay. And Death Guard is still amazing. So right now, Death Guard, Ultramarines, Blood Angels, Thousand Suns are like, and Chaos Space Marines are all kind of at the top of the heap right now, and they're all power armor things that are out there like smashing stuff. So being good at killing power armor is really important. Knights are really good at killing power armor. Knights do not want to ever come across Thousand Suns, basically, and so that's like a thing that's happening. And then again, we talked about the Tyranids. So the meta is in a weird spot right now where there are a couple really high performing lists. Some of them get smashed by other high performing lists that are very like also running around in the meta. And I think Thousand Suns is probably, in my opinion, is like the best army in the game right now.
Yeah, my approach to this is I'm snowflaking so hard, Noah. I'm such a snowflake that I'm surprised you can even see me as Colin right now.
Oh yeah.
I have made an Eldar list that I will talk about after the tournament that just simply does not look at what other people are doing. It just doesn't. It is so Colin that I'm like, this is what I'm doing. This is fun. I want to do this, and I think it's wildly counter meta. I think I am built specifically for two things: knights and dudes in power armor. I think that I am very prepared for those two things.
So what is the so? Are you sad if you play against Tyranids?
No, partially because my main practice partner is Alex McDougall.
Who are you? So obviously not with you. So just but curious. If we're good at killing giant things, or we're good at killing power armor, what is the thing that we are bad at playing against?
Green Tide. Remember my book can't answer that.
Well, luckily for you, I'm not playing Green Tide at Tacoma.
Okay. So that means no one is playing Green Tide at Tacoma.
Probably not.
There might be one person, but all of his orcs will be named, so it won't be the same thing. I just broke no, everybody. We're gonna need a minute.
That's like the most. That's like how like every Imperial Guard player has a story about how they almost joined the military.
Well, I mean, it's so Eldar. I think that this is something that I was articulating in a game this week. So my opinion on Eldar is you better know what the hell you're doing. That's where they're at in the game. Because they're hard to play. They're very, very powerful, and I think you can absolutely win events with them, but they're very hard to play. And if you make a significant mistake or your game turns on you in an unexpected way, like somebody draws one of the wildly broken challenger cards, I think that's absolutely the case with Eldar. And someone asked me this weekend, what's the next sentences? Like if you were to tell me what the next thoughts from Colin are after that. And I thought for a minute, and my big takeaway is, you know that meme that the GIF or meme that shows up all the time online where it's the kid's toy with all the different shapes, and someone's trying to put the triangle in through the circle, and they're trying to put the square in through the triangle. That's Eldar. You have some shapes, and your opponent has some. Oh, okay, I didn't think this through before I got this far. So I'm going to take a step back. You have tools, and they have very specific things that they do, and they don't do other things. They just do those things.
All I'm hearing is Colin's trying to put his tools in people's holes.
Yes, and the right tool has to go in the right hole. That's the summary of how Eldar works. So what am I worried about? I think hordes are a problem. I think janky stuff I haven't seen is a problem. I am more worried about inexperience than I am about my list. Just because there is so much in the meta to know right now. What we were going to talk about today, and we don't have time, is we were going to go through each of the factions and say, this is the general threat this army poses to you. Because one of the problems is we say, oh, we'll build your list for the meta. What does that even mean? So what Noah and I are going to do, and we'll probably have time to do this next week, is go through and say, all right, are the good players in your area playing sisters? This is roughly what you need to think about when you're playing against sisters. Bring Eldar. Eldar, other than when triple not executioner, triple angry organ. When triple angry organ was good, Eldar has no answer to 3 really good indirect fire tanks. But other than that, Eldar's been a sisters predator for a long time. Anywho, that's the thing we were going to do, and we don't have time to do that today. But I think that Tacoma-wise, I feel pretty ready for Knights, and I feel pretty ready for Marines. But I hate T-Suns, and I don't want to play against them. That's my main thing. Is I think that if they're playing the Rubrikai army, I think that army is just wildly unfun to play against. I think that GW has done an excellent job making that a terrible experience for their opponent. And if your opponent is all T3 that's trying to hide, because that's literally how their army functions, and you go 40 inches and then just the character from your unit picks up my entire army, feels bad. Feels bad.
Beginner Dude asks, can Eldar counter interact with D-cannons? And I think the answer is no, because D-cannons tend to have too short of a range to deal with the other indirects. And they're usually on platforms that are easily killed by the other indirects.
Yeah, too short of distance, very expensive, difficult to function, because you really want to put it with a unit. I think you have to put it with a unit now, even. No, that can't be right. Regardless, it's not good. D-Cannon's not good. And then you can't make it reliable enough. One of the problems that Eldar has is relying on things to go right without rerolls. So like I play with Wind Riders, not because they're the best. Well, I think they might be one of the best things in the book, but other people don't play with Wind Riders. To me, though, a unit that brings its rerolls with it is perfect. That's what Eldar needs, is units that bring reliability with them to the party. Why do I like Banshees? Because they hit on 2s. So yes, reroll 1s would be great, but when you hit on 2s, you can just live with the fact that you hit on 2s. All right, Noah is almost out of time. Noah,
I have a little more time today.
oh okay. So what I was going to do next is I was going to talk about the 5 games of 40K I've played in the past week, but not from an Eldar point of view, from armies that I'm seeing and what my thoughts are on them.
Sure.
Because I'm seeing a lot of variety right now. So first of all, I've played against a lot of Morty's Hammer. I've not played against Virulent Vasecticide Vermintide or whatever.
Virulent Vasectomy.
Virulent Vermintide Vasectomy, which I've heard is the best one. I've been told that, but I have not played against it. But what I have seen 3 different times on the table is Morty's Hammer.
So I think that will unintentionally skew you negatively towards your experience with Death Guard and potentially be a negative for you when you go to play against one of these, because so the best performing Death Guard players that I have talked to say Morty's Hammer is good, but Morty's Hammer is more limited in its ability and it's more of the stat checky stuff.
Yeah.
Virulent Victorum and Champions of Plague or whatever it is are the 2 that everyone is saying that all the best players who are winning events are telling me that are the 2 best. And those are the ones that I have played against the most. Virulent Victorum has like some of the most abusive damage output for any of the Death Guard, which you don't care about any much because when you show things, they die. So you probably don't care as much. But the thing you probably do care about is fights first almost anywhere on any one of their units, as long as it has 2 characters. So not being able to assault the Plague Marine unit that auto-deletes multiple units in a turn is probably problematic for you. And there's some other tools in there as well.
Okay, good to know. What I was going to say is...
I do have to go. Catch you later. Sorry.
What I was going to say is that I actually think Morty's Hammer is dumb and bad. So no, I didn't predict that at all. I like that. I think the book is too good. I think the things are undercosted. They get too many things, all of that. Morty's Hammer is a stat check. I look at all these durable things that I brought. Haha. And I think that that's just not the way. I like that the other detachments have more jank. I also think that they're probably wildly too powerful. I've been helping Chuck. I've been playing, not helping Chuck. I've been playing Vote. I've played 2 games against Chuck's Votann. Love where Votann are at right now. Noah's been talking about that. I think Chuck's army is really, really good. We played 2 very close games. I think 2 games decided by less than 10 points between Eldar and Votann. Eldar has been a natural predator of Votann in 10th edition, especially Ynnari. I just tabled Votann so quickly. It doesn't feel that way right now. So those were really interesting games for me. I also have played into the tunnel Tyranid thing. Wildly difficult to play against because at some point on turn 3 they might just drop 4 giant monsters 6 inches away from your army. I don't like that. It's very hard. I've talked about T-Suns quite a bit. I also played against Starshatter Necrons. I really liked that game. I had only seen Starshatter as I have vehicles that are going to run through walls at you. I don't think So here's the thing. Slight tangent. The vast majority of the time, being able to put a vehicle through a wall isn't actually that useful. Vehicles are big. They have to fit on the other side of the wall. People are in the way. It's good, but it's not as broken as people think. When I play against Starshatter now, and even when it was just a shooting list before, I just didn't run into people going through walls. If you position your army right, it's just not really as much of a thing as you might think. You could tell how fast things are going to move. If Wave Serpents were going 22 inches in Warhost and they were going through walls, that's a problem. But your Plague Burst Crawler goes through walls, I don't care at all. Your Doomsday Arc goes through walls. Don't care. So anyways, what I saw from Star Shatter though was jank. It was really cool. My buddy played Wraiths and put the Wraiths, towed them into the middle objective. I couldn't possibly kill them in one activation because of terrain and positioning. He was able to make it very difficult for me to get them. And then he would resurrect back onto the objective. He did that for a couple turns before I just YOLO'd in the middle with my Eldar. I was like, no, stop it. Very impressed with that. I think that the advanced and shoot is incredibly strong in that army, much more so than the going through walls on GW terrain. What I really liked about that army is that it had tools that weren't just, I'm going to shoot you harder. What I don't like about that army is that Doomsday Arcs are unreliable, and everybody has them in that army, as far as I know, to try to rely on them. And in my opinion, random number of shots might miss, might fail to wound, they might make their invul. Too many things. Their shots can be too low. Their hit rerolls can be gone, can be non-existent. I don't even know if they have hit rerolls. Maybe they reroll ones. I think it's just that they get to hit on twos if you're standing on an objective. But as an Eldar player, I find that standing on objectives is dangerous, and I don't believe in it. So yeah, I think if you're a Necron player, give Star Shatter a go, but don't think of it as just a giant hammer you're going to club someone with. Think about how you're going to score points while you're doing it, and I think you'll probably have a pretty good time. All right. Let me check my notes and see if I forgot any of the armies I played against. Oh, no, that's it. So that is our show this week. Next week, we'll be doing all Tacoma Open prep. Very excited. Lots of my friends are going to be there. I'm going to go. I've told myself that if I want to make 40K content full time, I probably should go to all 3 days of the tournament, regardless of what's going on. I guess if the house closes that weekend, I don't know. Like if the house does things that say I can't go, then I can't go, and it is what it is. But you know, in about a month, I'm going to have my own travel schedule and get to go wherever I want. And I am thinking about where in the country I want to go play 40K at, which is a thing I haven't done since before COVID. It'd be fun to go see my Art of War friends. It'd be fun to go hang out with Vanilla. Yeah, so lots of different things that I could go do. Okay, everybody, we'll be back next week. Thank you for joining us this morning for Competitive Advantage on July 9th. And I appreciate all of you. If you'd like to support the network, we have a fantastic and entertaining advertisement that I'm going to put on right now. Bye, everybody. Hi, I really hope you're enjoying our content. For 20 years, I pushed through an exciting career in enterprise software sales. While I had quite a bit of success and fun, I watched as my interest and drive slowly fell away. Since I was 8 years old, I've wanted to entertain. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep creating and tweaking 40K web shows until I land on the combination that the community just can't get enough of. It's an exciting journey and I'm sincerely having the best time. But I can't do it alone. Would you like to help make my journey easier? Well, there's several ways to do that. First of all, I know that you're told all day long to like and subscribe. That's because it really does help. Please do the thing. Next, you can sign up for our Patreon. We have several levels that might work for you. First, just simple Discord access. For nearly a decade, we've run one of the most positive and helpful spaces in all of 40K. Come find out for yourself. That tier also gets our help finding TTS opponents and can join in on our 2 or more private stream games every week that we do only for our patrons. Up a tier, you'll get all our past recordings of our private stream games. You'll have access to the memes, graphics, and presentations we use on our shows. We have a fantasy football league. We have other leagues. We have a weekly TTS drawing to pair you up with your favorite content producer for a game. And you know what else? If you're all in on this journey and you want to do whatever you can, there's a tier for that as well. Thank you and enjoy the show.